All right, another great day. We are just waiting for RFK Jr. to go live. I was hoping he would go live before I was recording this. He's about to go live at any time here in Texas. This was scheduled before the big update that we now have today. Great news. Once again, RFK Jr. seals another one, this time Texas. This is huge. This is big, big news. So I'm going to read from this, and I will be awaiting RFK Jr. at any moment could go live and should go live. But for right now, let me go ahead and just read some of this article here. This is great news. In the news section, of course, we are Kennedy24.com. Oh, this is new. We the People Radio. I'll have to go see what that is. But you go into the press section here, and then we are going to look at the press release from today. Kennedy Shanahan turned 245,572 signatures in historic ballot access victory in Texas. Ooh, that's a mouthful. Make this a little bigger. That's what she said. And let's go ahead and read some of this. Independent candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and vice presidential candidate Nicole Shanahan today visited the Texas Secretary of State office and turned in 245,572 signatures, twice as many as are required to gain ballot access in Texas. This is from Kennedy's Twitter, posted 4 photos. There's a few more out there floating around there. Today, Nicole and I turned in 245,572 signatures, twice as many as are required to gain ballot access in Texas. Thank you, Lone Star State. And then 4 pictures there showing them Kennedy signing this thing. And see if I can pull one of these up. I don't know if this will. Oh, it's probably going to redirect me over to Twitter. So we can make this a little bigger. The state of Texas. There it is. Look at that. State of Texas, Secretary of State Jane Nelson. Here's the letter. I'm dealing with a little flu, but it will not stop. Okay. Dear Mr. Kennedy, our office is in receipt of your application to file for president elector forms, alternate elector forms, as well as 25 boxes containing 245,572 signatures as estimated by your campaign. Our office will provide a determination on your application once all documents have been thoroughly reviewed. If you have any further questions, please feel free to contact our office toll free. That is from Christina Worrell Atkins, Director of Electors. So that is on Kennedy's Twitter. You can find that over there right now. And then, of course, one of him signing something. Kennedy signing something there. And this is just great news. Great news to get him on the ballot, to see him in another state. So now I'm going to go back and read more from the press release today. RFK Jr.'s strength, character, and selfless dedication to defend and protect our democracy is a beacon of hope for all Americans, said Texas State Director Kim Lindberg. Lone Star State volunteers echo this sentiment and believe RFK Jr. is the best person to lead this country. By collecting nearly 250,000 signatures in just 2 months, the campaign has shown it can overcome the most difficult ballot access requirement in the country. Kennedy is the first independent presidential candidate to make the Texas ballot in more than 2 decades since Pat Buchanan's presidential run in 2000. The signature requirement then was just over 56,000. Now it's 151,000. So again, Kennedy needed to get, and they need to have certified, made official, 113,151 people to sign. That is a signature requirement. And as we've said 3 or 4 times now, and I'll just say it one more time, they got 245,572 people to sign to get Kennedy's name on the ballot in Texas. Boom. So, RFK Jr. has drawn a line in the sand reminiscent of the determination of our Texas forebears, said National Field Director Andy Griffith. It's time Texans declare independence from the limitations of partisan politics and vote for new leadership. I am loving this. The Kennedy Shanahan ticket is officially on the ballot in 6 states: Utah, Michigan, California, Delaware, Oklahoma, and now Texas. The campaign has collected enough signatures for ballot access in 8 other states: New Hampshire, Nevada, Hawaii, North Carolina, Idaho, Nebraska, Iowa, and Ohio. Beautifully done. This is great. The Kennedy Shanahan campaign has collected signatures needed for ballot access in 14 states, totaling 187 electoral votes, 35% of the 538 total electoral votes nationwide. Later today, Kennedy Shanahan will host a voter rally in Austin's Brazos Hall to celebrate this ballot access victory. And that was supposed to happen about 15 minutes ago, and we're still waiting. So at any moment, this could happen and will happen. And when that does, who knows? Maybe I'll just broadcast this whole thing from there, or I may just stop this stream and go from there. There's some other news, some other good news. But before I get to that, I want to go to Kennedy 24. I'm going to play maybe a few little clips of Kennedy. But this is just awesome news once again. Here he has another state. And this is a big state with Texas here. And I mean, it's really getting down there. Remember, he just needs 270 electoral votes to win. He's doing really, really well now. And at any time right now, Kennedy will be speaking in Texas. So I'm looking forward to hearing from them. I will broadcast that, shoot over there, broadcast that live in Texas at any time. But he is doing a 35% right now of the possible electoral votes. And that's just what he could have, right? But this is just amazing news. So let me go back and let's share this. There's a few new clips as we wait. I will play this one. This is about 2 minutes. Let me just pause this. That, a little bit of that. Little love here. Here we go.
How do you personally internalize that when you're being, attacked?
Sorry, I didn't hear any audio.
From all these people? How do you personally internalize that when you're being, attacked from all these people who were once your friends, your heroes? How have you been weathering that?
I had such an deep awakening over the last 2 years. The pandemic impacted me in significant ways, and I think I speak for a huge part of the population when I say I trusted the system to look out for my well-being and my family's well-being and the well-being of my community and the well-being of communities across America. And like many, I believe that we were wronged and we were deeply hurt. And we're still recovering from that. When people say that this is a one-issue platform around health and well-being, I say, but let's unpack that issue. Because yes, there's this whole desire for medical freedom and informed consent, but what are we really talking about? We're talking about the very fact that censorship has occurred. Our first most important freedom in this country is freedom of speech. We're talking about the right for babies to have every opportunity to a healthy life in this country, fundamental to just our basic understanding of human rights. So when I get attacked by people that I still hold very dear, whose opinion I respect immensely. And when I get attacked publicly for being a part of this, I remind myself that I am aligned with a responsibility for everything I've gotten from being an American to make sure that that America is still available for the next generation.
Powerful. Good stuff there. Hard to argue. Whoops, in the wrong room there.
CBS 17 is your local election headquarters. Joe Biden and Donald Trump may not be your only choices this fall.
Oh, this is pretty cool. Okay, let me cut to this. Didn't even know this was out there, but here is another quick little clip here. I haven't seen this one.
CBS 17 is your local election headquarters. Joe Biden and Donald Trump may not be your only choices this fall.
Robert Kennedy Jr. is closer to getting on the North Carolina ballot. Tonight, we're digging deeper into whether votes for Kennedy may be from people who support him and his policies, or whether it's simply to vote against the president and the former president. After a stop earlier in the year in Raleigh and a one-on-one sit-down with me, Robert Kennedy Jr. failed to get enough signatures to get on North Carolina's ballot as an independent running for president. He then formed his own political party called We the People. Within a week of the deadline, he's done much better with this effort. The number of signatures that have been handed in and are being validated by the Board of Elections exceed the 13,865 that We the People need. If Kennedy's signatures pass inspection and the state board recognizes his party, it still may not be what makes it or breaks it for Democrats or Republicans. Many of Kennedy's voters may have not voted at all without another option, so some votes will be a wash.
So yes, some of them will come from Biden, some of them will come from Trump, but a fair number of them are people who might have otherwise stayed home, but now this is a chance for them to, shall we say, officially register their dissatisfaction with both the major party candidates.
Another party we're watching is Cornel West's Justice for All party, which is also gaining signatures. NC State political scientist Stephen Green says voters should be prepared for the wasted vote argument.
If you're not voting for Joe Biden, you are throwing your vote away. If you want policy outcomes that are more on the right and you're not voting for Donald Trump, you're throwing your vote away. So, both sides are going to be making some version of that argument.
And in a state that elections are won by a couple of percentage points or fewer, no candidate wants to lose a vote. But Green says historically, it tends to be a negative vote.
But they're a minority, that most of the people voting for a third party in this situation are simply expressing profound discontent with the status quo in American politics and what both the major parties are offering.
And there was one famous case.
One of the most
keep in mind,
famous cases in the world, remember, where a third-party candidate likely changed the election in 2020? Mm-hmm. Al Gore lost to George Bush in Florida by 537 votes. You may recall, as most of us do at a certain age,
right,
me especially, Green Party candidate Ralph Nader was blamed for taking votes away from Gore. It all ended up resting on Florida as far as who would be the next president of the United States. Mm-hmm. We now know how that ended, ultimately made by the Supreme Court.
And there you go, by the Supreme Court. And that is not who you want deciding the election. But that could happen again here in 2024. Let's say if nobody gets to 270. What happens then? What happens if Biden, Trump, and Kennedy don't get to 270? Does the Supreme Court decide that? Then at that point, I guess that will be another question for another day. Just checking back in. I've not seen Kennedy. Still waiting. They are not live yet. So we are happily awaiting that here at any moment. They will be live. They will be speaking. So until then, I guess I got some time to maybe play some other things here or to look at some stuff. Let's go see what's happening in the world of Donald J. Trump. This is from today. This will be a good one. Let's see what Trump is saying here.
Well, thank you very much. Greatly appreciate you being here. The New York Times just came out with a poll that shows us leading everywhere by a lot. This is the cover story, and I think you'll find it very interesting, but I'm sure you've all read it. Leading in Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Georgia, and Nevada. Nevada, we are leading actually by 12 points, which is generally a Democrat state. I think we're probably leading in New Jersey. We had a rally, over 100,000 people this weekend. A lot of the mainstream media didn't want to say how many people. They didn't want to tell us. But mine. The Trump trial is politically motivated. I doubt the New York indictment would have been brought against a defendant whose name was not Donald Trump. Mark Levin, great guy, brilliant man. Our judicial system has blown up. It's broken. Andrew McCarthy. Trump should be acquitted in Manhattan, wholly independent of the plethora of constitutional infirmities in the prosecution. It should be thrown out for the most basic of reasons. Bragg cannot prove his case. Got no evidence. And I'm innocent. This is a political witch hunt, and nobody's ever seen anything like it. And it's, I tell you what, the appellate division on the judges should step in, because what this judge is getting away with is disgraceful, including the fact that we have thousands of people. We had 100,000 people in New Jersey. They would like to show their support. It's like an armed camp outside. You can't get one person within 3 blocks of this courthouse. Greg Jarrett, we're not, I mean, you take a look at this statement. We're entering the 4th week, and there's still no evidence whatsoever connecting Trump with any criminal wrongdoing. A crime that's not charged. It's a crime that in which prosecutors won't even tell the defendant what it is. I have no idea what they're even doing. We have records, and they talk about bookkeeping. The only thing down in the bookkeeping is that we call a legal expense a legal expense. We don't call it a construction expense. We don't say for concrete work. We don't say for electrical work. We pay the lawyer a legal expense. And we have a legal expense is a legal expense. It's marked down in the book, quote, legal expense. It's perfectly marked down. The other side doesn't know how to handle it, but they say, let's indict him anyway, because that's what Biden, this all comes from Biden in the White House, by the way. And they have their top people here. Because when he can't put 2 sentences together, he's the worst president in the history of our country. Can't speak, can't walk off a helicopter, can't walk off a plane, can't walk off a stage. And the only way they think they can win is if they can do something with Trump. Because we have an incompetent, the worst president in the history of the United States of America. Jonathan Turley, after Bragg closes the prosecution's case, the defense will make a standard motion for dismissal. Mershon, who is so corrupt and so conflicted, like no judge has ever been, and the press doesn't want to write about it, but you know exactly what we're saying. Mershon should grant that motion for dismissal. There's been no showing of a crime. They failed to protect the rights of the defendant from a baseless, politically motivated prosecution. That's Jonathan Turley. All very talented legal experts. But the big thing today seems to be the Times. I'm sure the Times is thrilled. I respect them for at least letting it come out. And there it is. It's Trump leading by a lot in every state. Every swing state leading by a lot. This trial is rigged. It's dishonest. It's a disgrace to New York. It's a disgrace.
It sure is. Now, I know sometimes it may come off, oh, Trump is whining, he's complaining. No, he's defending himself. He is defending everything that is being thrown at him. So he's just, that's what I see anyways. I don't see it whiny, complaining. He's got to defend himself because nobody else is. The media won't do it. Now, what I heard, thankfully, from some people in the chat room on Kennedy 24, Team Kennedy 24 on YouTube is that Kennedy is live right now on C-SPAN. So I'm going to go to that and we'll start over there. I'm going to try to start this from the beginning. And let's watch.
Life is too short.
Of course, after these commercials. Oh, you got to love the commercials. Oh, I can even skip the ad. Okay, cool. Skipping it.
I asked Nicole.
So I can start all the way over here.
Trump talk about how he's going to end the chronic disease epidemic. No. Don't you want a president who's going to be thinking about those things?
Okay. Trying to watch from the beginning. Gosh.
When I get into office, I am going to end the chronic disease epidemic. It's one of the reasons I asked Nicole to be my vice president, because she spent her lifetime thinking about it. She understands it. We need a government that is making this our priority in this country, to give us a generation now of healthy children. Don't you want that for our country? And don't we want to end? Don't we want to end the lying by our government? Don't you want a government that's going to tell you the truth? You know, when I was a kid, everybody trusted the government. People, that may seem hard to believe now, but Americans trusted. When my uncle was president, 85% of Americans said that they trusted their government. People actually were proud of the fact that they paid their taxes. They considered it a civic duty because they trusted their government to spend it well and to tell them the truth about it. That's almost unimaginable today. And, you know, the first time people understood that the government actually lies to us was in 5 months before my uncle's election. A U-2 spy plane, a CIA spy plane, was shot down over Russia. And it flew at 60,000 feet. It was invisible to the eye, invisible to radar. It was a top secret CIA program. Nobody in the world knew about this program. And so Alan Dulles, and the pilot was under orders to commit suicide. He had a cyanide shot that he was supposed to give himself if he ever got shot down. It couldn't be shot down because it was so secret. But there was a spy, a Russian spy at Langley, that told them how to do it. And they exploded it. And Alan Dulles, the head of the CIA, told Dwight Eisenhower, lie about it, deny it, because the Russians were saying we shut down a U.S. spy plane. The world was shocked. It was illegal for us to be flying over Russia. And Eisenhower went out there and he lied. And the next day, the Russians produced Gary Francis Powers. And the whole thing was exposed. And Americans, for the first time, said, oh my God, our government lies to us. And then when my uncle was killed in 1963, the investigation, the Warren Commission, came out and said it's a lone gunman. 60% of Americans thought the government was lying again. And in 1973, the Pentagon Papers released 26 volumes that showed 10 years the government had been hundreds of government officials have been systematically lying to us. And Americans suddenly said, oh my God, a majority of Americans, the American government, a democracy, lies to its people. And today, we all know every time we see a government official on TV, whether it's a president, a vice president, or anybody else, our assumption is, isn't it, that they're lying to us? And if that is not your assumption, then you're not paying attention. Oh. A lot of times, reporters will say to me, you know, you're telling Americans not to trust their government. If you get the presidency and no American trusts you, how are you going to govern? And I say to them, because I'm going to make the government trustworthy. The day that Nicole and I get into office, we're going to issue on day one an executive order saying that any government official who lies to the American public in conjunction with their official duties will immediately be fired.
Okay, I did find the whole thing from the beginning, so I'm going to switch to that and try to play that one here so we can watch it from the beginning. I wonder what happened. Why it's not being broadcast on Kennedy's channel, but that's okay. At least we have it here. So let me go ahead and start that and play it. see if there's any other the audio. The quality is terrible. That's okay.
Vice presidential running mate Nicole Shanahan.
Things before they become.
I started to think, oh my God.
No? But before I get out of here, I want.
And what issue do you care about? You know,
I just want to hear from Kim.
in these corporate owners.
You say up the whole thing here. It looks like
an alternative.
Welling of optimism. Office promise.
here we go.
I want to start by thanking some of the people who appeared here today. Jonathan Moody for his music, Jessica Sutta, J.P. Sears, who my brother was side by side the entire COVID pandemic. One of the few people who remained funny during the pandemic. Willie D, thanks for coming down from Houston. And Ryland Engelhardt, who's given his life to giving us better food. And then 3 Texas volunteers, Kim Lindbergh, Judy Tucker, and Casey Malish. And they were part of the team. They were those are the 3 champion signature gatherers. We had an historic day today in Texas. We handed in just under 250,000 signatures. That's more than any presidential candidacy in the history of Texas and in the history of our country. The Texas legislature said, change the rules to your year at the last session to double the number of signatures that needed to be collected because they thought nobody would ever be able to do it. The pundits, you heard them from the beginning of this campaign, were saying it would be impossible for us to get on the ballot. And we got on the ballot in Texas. And if you can get on in Texas, we can get on everywhere. Texas only gave us 45 days to collect 113,000 signatures. We got more than double that. And I was just upstairs talking to the team that I was just completing the signature, and they said, we're on our way to New York tonight. Oh, because New York is the next one for us. We have 10 days now to complete. We had 45 days. The 2 hardest states are New York and Texas. We already got more than we need in New York. The DNC has done everything in their power to stop us, and they'll continue to do that. But we are going to get on the ballot in every single state. And I want to thank all of you who are part of this. And I want to say a couple of words about Nicole. When we chose Nicole, it's always, we've seen throughout our history that presidential candidates who chose unknown candidates as their vice president have historically run into a lot of problems because those people who are inexperienced in national politics, oftentimes when they're exposed to it, they collapse. Any kind of issues they have are amplified, and they end up looking bad. And I have, watched Nicole since the day of our announcement, and what she has been through has been extraordinary. Because she didn't spend her lifetime thinking I'm going to be vice president of the United States. I called her on the telephone and said, do you want to be vice president of the United States? And she said, let me think about it. And then we had dinner about 3 nights later, and she said, I'm going to do it. And, but you know, I'm worried about it, and other people are, because you don't know how people are going to hold up, and you're walking into a buzzsaw where you're vilified, you're marginalized, you're derided, you're defamed, all the things that I've been through, but I'm used to it. I've been going through this for most of my adult life. But to have that all land on you in a 2-week period or a 3-week or 4-week period, and to be able to withstand it, and to come up and give a speech like that, where every time and every time I see her speak, I fall a little bit more in love with her. Because you don't see vice presidential candidates or presidential. Most of the presidential candidates we have today, they sound like they're doing a satire of Veep. And the stuff that they're talking about is inane, it's cliches, it's panaceas and shibboleths and simplifications and bumper sticker slogans. And that's not what you hear from Nicole. You hear a lecture about soils. There's no political scientist in the world that would tell you you gotta do a lecture on the soils. They'll love it. Nobody would tell her to do that. Nobody would advise her. And yet she does it. And, you know, we all love her because we see the authenticity, we see the integrity, we see the compassion for other people, for the creatures with whom we share this planet. And you don't hear that from our political leaders. You don't hear that we're all part of a giant family and that the microbes are part of it. The soil is part of it. The plants are part of it. And that's what we need if we're going to start healing this country. Two days ago, I did a podcast with a guy called John Kempf. And he's a podcaster himself, but he's a young Amish farmer. And he can't have the camera on him because the Amish don't believe they only can use technology for certain purposes. But I was able to see him through a camera, but he can't use it during the podcast. And I had to promise him I'd never show the film anywhere. He's an extraordinary guy. He's a very handsome, young, 35-year-old guy with his very bright eyes and a long chin beard down to about here. And I asked him about his life, and he told me, like all the Amish, or most of the Amish, he has an 8th grade education. The Amish leave school when they're after 8th grade. But he had this extraordinary encyclopedic knowledge of the soils, of the plants, of the agricultural systems, of agricultural immunology, which he's made himself a global expert. I spend a lot of my time, because of my career, talking with scientists, with PhD scientists, with MD physicians, with people who have a lot of letters behind their name. And I love listening to them talk because they have an expertise, they have a grasp of a particular area of knowledge where you understand that you're listening to these existential truths that they've devoted their lives to understanding. And that's how I felt. I felt like I was a kid listening to a professor at Harvard because he knew so much about it. And about 15 or 10 years ago, he was a pesticide dealer. His father is one of the biggest pesticide dealers and fertilizer dealers in Ohio, in the Amish country of Ohio. And a few years ago, they began having pest problems on their farm. And they found that the more pesticides they applied, and they were consulting with professors at the agricultural universities about how to kill this pest and the next pest and the next pest. The more pesticides they applied, the sicker their plants got. The more pests came. And it happened that they rented a piece of land that was exactly parallel to the piece that they'd been treating, but this piece had never been treated. And they grew melons on parallel tracks on both, and they said, we're going to try this year with no pesticides just to see what happens. And in the area that had been saturated for years with pesticides, the plants were overwhelmed with pests. But on the track that was untreated, that they grew melons on, not a single pest appeared. And he said it was like a knife line between the two rows of crops. And one was completely healthy, the other was decimated. And he said that prompted him and his father and his brother to go to a seminar, to a conference on pesticides, and they listened to a speaker talk about it. His father took the two boys out to lunch afterward, and they said, we're done. We're never going to use them again. And they have now become, and he plunged himself into a study of plant immunology. He said he didn't even know that plants had immune systems, but they do. And he's now one of the world's experts on it. He has 4 million farmers who follow him. And he's developed a way of agriculture of growing plants with extraordinary productivity without using any pesticides. And he says that they treat the pest with nutrients instead, because the nutrients will then bolster the immune system and the native immune response of that plant. And I told him about a study, a very important study that I read years ago. The name of the study, the scientist is called Geyer, G-U-Y-E-R, and it was published in 2000, right at the end of the 20th century. And it was CDC-funded study. It was done by CDC scientists, NIH scientists, and scientists from Johns Hopkins. And they were looking at the decline in infectious disease mortalities in our country between 1900 and 2000, when there was an 80% decline in mortalities. The diseases themselves did not disappear. People were still getting measles, pertussis, tetanus, cholera, all these different diseases, but they were no longer killing people. The infectious mortality of measles was 10,000 people a year in 1900, but by 1963, it was 400 a year, and almost all of the people who were infected were malnourished. They were mainly Black kids from the Mississippi Delta. And what this study found is that all medical interventions, vaccines, antibiotics, and surgeries had almost nothing to do. They found less than 3% impact on the decline in mortalities. The decline they attributed to the bolstering of immune systems, the constructions of roads that allowed oranges to be brought from the South during the wintertime so people could eat them, refrigerators that allowed good fresh food to be in people's kitchens, the sewage treatment plants, the water plants, so clean water, nutrition, sanitation, the things that give us good immune systems. And it was the same lesson. And we need to start bolstering our immune systems, bolstering the things that God gave us, the soils, and good food does not come from chemical agriculture. And good health does not come in a syringe. And we are a sick country today. When my uncle was president, 6% of American kids had chronic disease. Today, 60% do. And it's the biggest issue. It's $4.3 trillion, 5 times our defense budget. We're spending 2 or 3 times per capita more than Europeans spend. And yet we have the worst health outcomes in the world. The more we spend on medicine, the unhealthier we get. But what is it that is causing us not to see that? What is it that's causing us to constantly feed this beast that is making us more and more sick all the time? It's a corrupt political system. It's the subversion of our democracy. And don't you want a healthy country? We have two presidents who are running today, two ex-presidents. One is the current president. They both had 4 years in office. They couldn't be more different than each other. If you look at their personalities, their dispositions, how they relate to the world, the ideology that drives them, that they articulate all the time, they couldn't be more different. But the issues that they're actually disputing on are a very narrow Overton window. It's what Nicole was saying. It's guns, it's abortion, it's the border, it's trans rights. These issues are all important, but none of them are existential. None of them are the issues that really matter to you, to me, to our children. The issues that really matter, they never talk about. Nicole said they're starting a little to talk about it because our campaign is forcing them to do it. We have a $34 trillion debt. The service on that debt is now costing us more than our defense budget. Within 5 years, 50 cents out of every dollar that we spend is going to go to servicing the debt. Within 10 years, 100% of every dollar we collect in taxes is going to service the debt. Have you ever heard of President Trump talking about how he's going to end the debt crisis? Have you ever heard of President Biden talking about it? Oh, they can't talk about it because they're the ones who ran up the debt. Half of that $34 trillion came from them. President Trump spent $8 trillion, ran up for $8 trillion during his term. It was more at that time than every president of the United States, from George Washington to George W. Bush, 283 years of history. President Trump came into office saying, I'm going to run it like a business. I'm a businessman. Trust me, we need a businessman to run it like a business. Exactly. And then he closed down all of our businesses. 3.3 million businesses. Who would do that? Who would do that? Do you want a president who's going to close down all of our businesses? Well, we have two presidents who've shown that they're willing to do that. And he ran up, he shifted $4 trillion from the American middle class to this new oligarchy of billionaires. And another issue, that this is an existential issue for our country. We cannot keep running on this debt. We need to figure out a way to invest in things that are actually going to grow our economy rather than more wars. President Trump and President Biden. President Trump did say that he was going to end the war machine, but then he brought John Bolton in to run NSA. Oh, we put a swamp creature in charge of draining the swamp. And then 2 weeks ago, he gave a big bear hug to Speaker Johnson and to President Biden, and they agreed to send $64 billion more over to Ukraine. Wouldn't you rather that $64 billion be spent here in the United States? Don't we need that country? Don't we need that money here in our country to improve our schools, to improve our healthcare system, to figure out ways to end this mental health epidemic that is destroying our children? Last year, we had the highest suicide rate in our history. We had the highest cancer rate in our history. We have the highest heart disease rate. It's not just chronic disease. It's not just the neurological disorders that are afflicting our kids, the autism that's gone 1 in 10,000 in my generation and 70-year-old men today to 1 in every 22 boys in my kids' generation. 1 in every 34 kids. It's not just the obesity epidemic. It's not just the allergy, the food allergies, the autoimmune diseases like juvenile diabetes that are devastating this generation. It's all these other injuries that are making our kids, our people, sicker and sicker and sicker. Have you ever heard President Trump talk about how he's going to end the chronic disease epidemic? No. Don't you want a president who's going to be thinking about those things? When I get into office, I am going to end the chronic disease epidemic. It's one of the reasons I asked Nicole to be my vice president, because she spent her lifetime thinking about it. She understands it. We need a government that is making this our priority in this country, to give us a generation now of healthy children. Don't you want that for our country? And don't we want to end? Don't we want to end the lying by our government? Don't you want a government that's going to tell you the truth? You know, when I was a kid, everybody trusted the government. People, it may seem hard to believe now, but Americans trusted. When my uncle was president, 85% of Americans said that they trusted their government. People actually were proud of the fact that they paid their taxes. They considered it a civic duty because they trusted their government to spend it well and to tell them the truth about it. That's almost unimaginable today. And, you know, the first time people understood that the government actually lies to us was in 5 months before my uncle's election. A U-2 spy plane, a CIA spy plane, was shot down over Russia. And it flew at 60,000 feet. It was invisible to the eye, invisible to radar. It was a top secret CIA program. Nobody in the world knew about this program. And so Alan Dulles, and the pilot was under orders to commit suicide. He had a cyanide shot that he was supposed to give himself if he ever got shot down. It couldn't be shot down because it was so secret. But there was a spy, a Russian spy at Langley, that told them how to do it. And they exploded it. And Alan Dulles, the head of the CIA, told Dwight Eisenhower, lie about it, deny it, because the Russians were saying we shut down a U.S. spy plane. The world was shocked. It was illegal for us to be flying over Russia. And Eisenhower went out there and he lied. And the next day, the Russians produced Gary Francis Powers. And the whole thing was exposed. And Americans, for the first time, said, oh my God, our government lies to us. And then when my uncle was killed in 1963, the investigation, the Warren Commission came out and said it's a lone gunman. 60% of Americans thought the government was lying again. And in 1973, the Pentagon Papers released 26 volumes that showed 10 years the government had been systematically, hundreds of government officials have been systematically lying to us. And Americans suddenly said, oh my God, a majority of Americans, the American government, a democracy, lies to its people. And today, we all know every time we see a government official on TV, whether it's a president, a vice president, or anybody else, our assumption is, isn't it, that they're lying to us? And if that is not your assumption, then you're not paying attention. Oh. A lot of times, reporters will say to me, you know, you're telling Americans not to trust their government. If you get the presidency and no American trusts you, how are you going to govern? And I say to them, because I'm going to make the government trustworthy. The day that Nicole and I get into office, we're going to issue on day one an executive order saying that any government official who lies to the American public in conjunction with their official duties, will immediately be fired. Don't you want a president who's going to not lie to you no matter what? And that is the first thing we need to do to start healing the divide. Because the reason we all hate each other is because none of us trust.
Okay, I'm not sure what happened there. It cut off, literally cut off all of a sudden right there. Let me see if I can get it back. Whew, this is crazy. Well, I don't know why it's so hard to find, but I'm glad they had it here. Unless C-SPAN just cut it at the end or something. Let me see if I can go there.
All hate each other is because none of us trust any of the institutions that are supposed to be telling us the truth. We all think they have an agenda, and it's either a Democratic agenda or a Republican agenda. We don't trust the enforcement agencies anymore because they're lying to us and they're taking sides. We don't trust the press anymore. When I was a kid,
Let me just see if it goes back after I skip the ad. No. All right. This is crazy. Well, I will have the whole thing. I'll put up the whole thing separately. Sorry about that. I don't know why it's. There's another 3 minutes here.
the job of the press was to maintain a fierce skepticism toward government pronouncements and government authorities. My father said to me when I was a little boy, people in authority lie. And our job in a democracy is not to trust the experts. That's not a feature of democracy. Our job is to respect people in power who are leading us, but to always question what they say to us. That is the job of a that's the job. That is the job of a citizen of democracy. And I'm going to give you, Nicole and I are going to give you a government that will not, under any conditions, lie to the American people. If we, we're going to tell Americans things they don't want to hear. We're going to tell you whatever we're going to operate transparently because that's what we need in a democracy. We're going to put all of our budget on blockchain so every American can read it 24 hours a day. If somebody is paying $4,000 for a hammer or $6,000 for a toilet seat, you're going to be able to find that out right away. Because it's your money, isn't it? Your money. Yeah. Well, they forgot it was your money. They're treating it like it's their own money and that they can keep secrets from us. And that's not what happens in a democracy. We're going to restore the faith in government, not by telling people you need to have faith, but by earning that faith, by earning that trust. By telling people the truth from day one. We're going to heal the divide. Not President Trump can't heal the divide, and President Biden cannot heal the divide. They both acknowledge the country is divided in a way that is more toxic, more dangerous than any time since the American Civil War. But they're not able to do anything about it because they feed that division. They're telling you to hate the other people. You can't do that and end the divide. We have to find common ground. And President Trump and President Biden are the
Life is too short.
dollars for a toilet seat. You're going to be able to find that out right away. Because it's your money, isn't it? Your money. Yeah. Well, they forgot it was your money. That division. They're telling you to hate the other people. You can't do that and end the divide. We have to find common ground. And President Trump and President Biden are the products of that division, of that toxicity, of that hatred. And if we want to have more of the same, you should vote for President Biden or President Trump because you already know what you're going to get. You're going to get more of the same. They've already shown you what they're going to do in 4 years. If you want another 4 years of that, you should vote for them. If Nicole and I get into office, everything is going to change. Everything. When? And don't you want everything to change? Is there anything that you want to keep the same? Oh, that's why we need to go out and get ballot signatures in all these other states, and then we'll get our country back. We'll get the country that you deserve, the country that is once again a moral authority around the world, that exemplifies democracy around the world, that is raising children that are healthy and showing the rest of the world. Now, a lot of people say, we can't overcome this stuff because we're already too far down the road. Do you believe that? That's why you're here today, because you don't believe that. And I'll tell you something. We have terrible problems in this country. We have an economic crisis, but we also have the greatest class of entrepreneurs of any country in the world. And politicians always say that kind of thing about their country. You know, we're the greatest. Nobody's seen anything like us. And in fact, if you talk to people in Europe or Latin America or Africa and Asia, they'll say, despite all of America's problems, we still have this entrepreneurial spirit and an entrepreneurial class like no other in the world, and people who really believe that they can achieve new things and that they're not locked into systems. We have that, and we're seeing it all over our country today. So we have the capacity to rebuild our economy. We have the sickest country in the world, the sickest. We have the highest disease burden of any chronic disease. During COVID, we had 16% of the COVID deaths. We only have 4.2% of the world's population. So I don't know why people are getting awards for this. We literally had the worst record of any nation in the world. And CDC said, well, it's not our fault. It's because Americans are so sick. Yeah. So we have the highest neurological disorders. CDC said the average American who died from COVID had 3.8 chronic diseases. So they had obesity, they had asthma, they had give me another one, diabetes, right? And one other thing. So, and that's why they died. So Nobody has chronic disease like us, and we are the sickest country in the world, but we also have the best physicians in the world. These new alternative medicine physicians and functional medicine physicians. And holistic medicine and naturopath and all of these different who are doing things that nobody on earth is doing. We have the capacity. We have a terrible illness problem, but we also have a greater capacity to heal. And so all of these problems are solvable problems. But we need somebody. We need a leader who will be able to summon the best and the brightest of Americans and put us on a new direction, entirely new direction. If we vote for Trump or Biden, we're going to get the same thing. If you vote for Shanahan and Kennedy, you're going to get something altogether different. You're going to get healing. We need to wind down the war machine. We need to bring that money home and reinvest it here. And we can't do that. We have the corporations against us. We have all of the institutions that they now control. The press, the regulatory agencies, Congress are all against us. But we have the people on our side. And we're going to go and we're going to take back our country. I want to thank all of you. Thank you all for your commitment to our country, to this campaign. God bless you and God bless America. Thank you all very much.
All right. I just want to say there's only been one other time where something like this has happened, where the Kennedy YouTube channel, the stream didn't work. And this is why I started streaming it, because in the Alabama stream that Kennedy had, YouTube cut it off. They chopped it off. So they may have even chopped this off, but it is on C-SPAN. The full thing, the full 1 hour and 40 minutes is on C-SPAN. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to, I don't know if I should replay it here. I'm definitely going to drop the link here if anybody wants to go and watch the full hour and 40 minutes. I have not, the pre-show seems really good. A lot of good speakers there, some comedians that you may recognize too. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm probably going to try to upload that full thing on its own, and maybe just play, unless anybody wants to watch the whole thing here. It's about, like I said, the pre-show, or if I should just replay the full Kennedy speech, because he did get cut off because the C-SPAN stream stopped at least 3 different times. So that's why I had to stop it and then go back and keep going and stop it. But I know people want to see it in the full context. They probably want to see it without the StreamYard duck in the corner there too. So I'm probably just going to try to record it and then upload the full event as its own video. I think that's probably the best thing. Because it drives me crazy when Kennedy is talking and people stop and they want to give their thoughts. So I just want to hear from Kennedy. I'm sure you do too. If you're a Kennedy guy or a Trump guy, either way, we want to hear. We want to hear from him. Joe says his God Bless America doesn't feel like when his dad would say. Interesting. Tell me more about that, because I'd love to hear some thoughts about why you feel like that, because obviously, I am a Kennedy guy because of his uncle and because of his dad. I'm really big fans of them, so I may be a little bit jaded by them, and but I have read a lot of RFK Jr.'s books, and I have really looked into him, and just it seems very similar. And maybe Joe, I don't know what your thoughts are on this, but to me, it seems very similar to how the media goes after Kennedy. It seems similar to how they go after Donald Trump, who I believe is the greatest president we've probably ever had, at least in my generation, in my lifetime. But I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on that too. So I don't know. I mean, I could replay all of the Kennedy speech in full. I could replay the full hour and 40 minutes, but I think it's probably maybe better to just, since this is supposed to be a podcast episode that will be put on Spotify, maybe I'll just play. I have a little comedy clip where Kennedy shows up at a comedy clip and does like a 4-minute comedy routine on Anthony Fauci, which is pretty good. So maybe I'll play a little bit of that too. But said, yeah, I too admire his dad and uncle. And I don't know what your feelings are on this, Joe. To me, it feels like, I heard Trump say, and I agree with him, Trump needs to get back in office in 2024 to finish the job. And I feel like Kennedy is kind of the same, where he needs to get back to finish what his uncle started, what his dad tried to continue before he was murdered in California, where RFK Jr. lives in California. And then this speech that we have now today, which is in Texas, where RFK Jr.'s uncle died in Texas, not in the same area, but still in the same state. And now we have RFK Jr. on the ballot in Texas. I mean, for anyone who, even as me, as a Trump guy, I still want to see the best person win, right? May the best man win. And if Kennedy can pull it off, if he can beat Trump fair and square, to me, that's cool. I have no issues with that. I didn't think that Biden won in 2020. I really don't. I think there is a lot of evidence that shows that. But whatever the thoughts are, here we are in 2024. And it just seems like the attacks against Trump are pretty much, they're very similar to the attacks against RFK Jr. So if you have any thoughts on that, I'm going to play a little bit of this that I was able to find here. It's about a 3-minute clip from Kill Tony. I thought it was pretty good, pretty funny. We'll see. Hopefully I don't get another strike here. I'm doing everything I can to not get a strike on this channel, just because I really want to make it to 2024. I lost my original channel in 2020 because of some of the stuff that I posted, and that sucked, but that's okay. It's all part of God's plan. This is the 3-minute clip here, and I'm going to start playing a little bit of this here. He talks. I'm just going to play it. You don't need my commentary.
But there's a lot of angry comments out back in the green room. As they said, if I come out here and I get a laugh, I'm going to wreck it for William Montgomery. I don't know who William Montgomery is. My family, as it turns out, loves William Montgomery too. They can't explain why they like William Montgomery. They just say, well, he's been around a long, long time, and he's not you. And if you go out there and you're funnier than William Montgomery, you're going to be a spoiler, and you're going to wreck it for him. And I feel like I'm okay coming out here and talking about William Montgomery. I said to them, I just want to go out there and say hi to people. And they said, that's too much. Anyway, I didn't really come prepared to tell the judge. wrote some jokes for me. He's very funny. He's got a lot of information. This is where I get most of my facts. A lot of his stuff is conspiracy theories. You have to filter that out. And he's funny. Oh, there were 2 leprechauns. And they were knee-walking drunk. They were so drunk.
Let's not do,
Make some noise for Cheryl Hines, everybody.
I'm just saying, I think that's a minute, and maybe we don't do accents right now. And I think it's good to quit when you're ahead.
That was fucking awesome. How about a hand for RFK Jr. and Cheryl Hines? How cool is this?
Oh, that's pretty funny. I'm not big, big on Cheryl Hines there. I don't know. I don't know how the audience really reacts to her. But yeah, let's go with that. Joe says, weird fact, Greg, I feel a strange bond with JFK. Interesting, because I do too. Was in my mother's oven completing my first trimester on that fateful day in November. Wow. Like everyone else, my mother was hysterically upset. Interesting. Let me ask you this. Do you think that what happened, I was just going to ask, well, I wasn't going to ask exactly that, but I was going to ask that. Do you think that what your mother went through while you were in the womb of really affected you and affected you? Because it goes back to the thing where we talk about abortion and when is life, right? You're in the womb and there's that connection. I believe there's that connection from the very first, when the sperm meets the egg, right? And gets in there and that's it. And so everything that your mother was going through at that time, it does affect you, I believe, from the very start. All the stresses, all the bad times, all the good times, all of that stuff. This is a historical, horrific event. So when you say that she almost miscarried me, that's just more proof of when does life begin. And I can't even imagine that stress, especially back then. I grew up before the digital age, so I have kind of like that understanding of before the digital stuff came in. A lot of the kids now, obviously, they don't have that. They're not going to have that blessings and those gifts that we had, that your mother had, that my father had. My father's father had, and that my parents and their parents had, right? And there's something very different about the pre-digital age that we can never get back. This is why I am resisting AI until the bitter end. And I work in technology, but I'm resisting AI to the bitter end. And it's going to be my end. I'm going to die before AI does. I already know that, even if I live to be 101, which I hope to do. When I hear the song Seconds by Human League, I Cry, I would play that, but it would probably I'd probably get a strike from that, but I will note that. That's a great band. Human League. I do like them. So I don't know if I'd have to listen to it to see if I may not know the name, but I'd be curious to hear, what her thoughts were there. And because it seems like it's like the world stopped with JFK. I forget the song, the Canadian song, I think, it felt like the world would freeze with John F. Kennedy. Life in a Northern Town. that one hits me, really hard too. And it's, I talk to my dad about it often because he lived through it, and it's like they just didn't really know. And it reminds me of 911. Kind of like I just didn't really know back then. I'm 45 now, so I was old enough to really, if I had my head straight in 2001, I should have really understood what was going on. It really took to 2004 before I really started to understand there's something wrong here. Um, with JFK, it was a little earlier because the JFK movie really was my first introduction to some alternative theories about what happened with John F. Kennedy, which I believe is apart from, aside from President Trump, aside from George Washington, probably my favorite president ever. Those are my three favorites. And I would love to see Kennedy join that on the fourth. Be my Mount Rushmore right there, those four. It's all about JFK. They called him the Golden One. Interesting. Whew. I mean, it just does, Joe, doesn't it feel like everything that happened, all the trauma that was caused to your mom, that was caused to the country, to the world, we can get some redemption here finally. I feel like we can get some redemption, if nothing else, by just getting Kennedy on the ballot in 24. I want to see him win in 2028 and 2032. But if he wins in 2024, I'm okay with that too. But it just feels like there's some redemption finally with the Kennedy thing, where all the other family, they stay silent. They don't want to talk about it. I mean, look at what they're doing to RFK Jr. It is, to me, it's crazy. It is disgusting what some of the family members are doing, and how Joe Biden is bringing them out, right? Like a puppet on a string. We know he's a puppet on a string. So puppets on puppets on puppets here that we're talking about. And when these family members go out and they pretty much diss RFK Jr., we're waiting for the family members that are going to stand up for him. And there are some. We're not going to hear about that from the mainstream news. And RFK Jr., he jokes about it. You can hear he was joking about the family and everything, which is pretty funny. I thought that was good. But it's a fascinating time in history. And I am so fascinated. And I just feel like this is redemption. Everything that Kennedy is doing here in 2024 is redemption, because they thought it was just going to be Trump versus Biden, the rematch, right? And now it's like Kennedy is now here. He's not going anywhere. He's in good health. He's talking about the right issues. It doesn't matter what the Republicans or the Democrats think. We're sick of the two-party system. It's one of the reasons why I voted for Donald Trump in 2016, is because I was tired of the two-party system. Even though he was a Republican, I never felt like Donald Trump was a real Republican. We talk about the rhino. Donald Trump is the real rhino. He's not. He is a Republican in name only. I think he's doing what's best for this country, but I do not consider Donald Trump a Republican, and I never will. And Kennedy, the opposite. And Kennedy, I always considered Kennedy, RFK Jr., a Democrat. But now how I see how the Democrat Party is treating Kennedy, he's a dino too. It's almost like he's a Democrat in name only because what the Democrat Party was. But then he also will constantly remind us that he's a Kennedy Democrat, which also got the same flack. His uncle got the same flack that he's going through. His dad got the same flack. It's the same story. Kennedy is trying to do, if you're a wrestling fan, this will make sense to you. What Cody Rhodes did is finish the story. Finish the Kennedy story. And the Kennedy story needs to end with a victory. The Kennedy story has had too much death, and it needs to end with a victory. It cannot end with these Kennedy family members endorsing Joe Biden and getting Joe Biden in there because they think he's the best person. He's the only one that's going to save this country. He's doing what's best for this country. The Kennedy story needs to end with RFK Jr. in the White House. Personally, I'd like to see that in 2028, not 2024. But if it happens in 2024, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I missed a few of your comments. Sorry. Mom has since passed, but every November 22nd when I was little, my mom would hug me very tight and soft. Yeah, and I'm sure you think about her every year on that. I'm sure you think about, the death and everything when she passed, and hopefully she's with the Lord up there. But I get that. And it's sad because this country has been through so much trauma. We've been through so much. And Jesus Christ tells us this. We're going to go through these things. We're going to go through hard times. There's not going to be a day on this earth where we all hold hands and sing and praise and the world is all great and everybody gets along with each other. That's not going to happen. It's not going to happen on this world. When Jesus Christ comes back, then it will happen. But until then, we need to stand strong. We need to keep doing what we are doing, do what is best for this country, to love this country, to love each other, to focus on Jesus Christ, and to make sure that we recognize these evil things that have happened in this world and in our country. And to our president, I mean, some of the comparison, the only thing they haven't done to President Trump is take him out yet. But you can compare what they did with President John F. Kennedy, how they treated him in 2 years, right? 1,000 days. That's all he got. And before COVID, there wasn't much more Trump really got before that time either. This power structure here. And if you believe in Jesus Christ, and if you believe in the Bible, you believe that the Bible is true, you understand on a higher level, yeah, we're going to grieve. We're going to be sad. This is all very, very sad stuff. But, this is temporary. Everything we're going through here is a temporary thing that is leading to something greater. So sorry, I didn't mean to get on my high horse there. My dad told me when I was about 15 what happened and how close I came to being me today. That's pretty interesting. And I wonder how many other parents went through that same thing that your mom went through at that time. And how many miscarriages there may have been that we never hear about, we're never going to hear about, we're never going to know about. I didn't know about this until you brought it up, And these are sad, sad stories. And this is another reason why Kennedy needs to finish the job. Finish the job. And I believe that he will. I really do. I do. I believe Kennedy's time will come. Thanks for letting me share this with you as therapeutic. God bless you, my brother. Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. And you can always share that stuff here. Share whatever you want here. If you ever want to come on and join me live at some point, you're always welcome to. Anytime you see me go live here, please feel free to join. I know it's not, a lot of people don't want to. They're very hesitant to, and I was too. You can hear I have this speech. I grew up with this speech, and doing live shows like this has really helped me try to work through that and try to get beyond my impediment, my stutter that I've had. And it has helped. It's my therapy. Doing shows like this is very therapeutic for me. So I'm glad that we're both in therapy, Joe. Pretty much. Here we are. Camelot needs to return to Washington, D.C. I believe so. I think you're right. And I would say, and maybe, I don't know what your feelings are on this, but RFK Jr. is the perfect one, right? Some of these other Kennedys, I wouldn't want to see them in Washington, D.C. They already are. They work for Joe Biden. It's like 5 Kennedys that are working for Joe Biden right now. I want to see RFK Jr. in the White House at some point here. And he's young enough, he's smart enough, he's intelligent enough that even if he doesn't win in 2024, one day I believe it will happen. If Trump wins in 2024 and Kennedy loses, and if Kennedy runs in 2028, he has my vote. Guaranteed. Guaranteed here. I witnessed my mom say the sinner's prayer. Great. Well, then you know. Yeah. So you know where she is. And that's the greatest thing of all is this life is temporary. And she's in a much better place. And she's going to where we all go. All of us believers go. That's what matters. You know, by our actions, what we do here makes a big, big difference. And so God bless you, my friend. God bless you. She's good. Yeah, she's good. God is good. God is great. God is great. God is good. That's probably a good place to end this out here, I think. I want to thank you for joining me. I'm going to come back again here pretty soon. Like I said, I may probably end up posting the full campaign speech because it was supposed to be live on Kennedy 24 on his YouTube channel. It never showed up there. I found it on C-SPAN because of the Kennedy chat room, the Kennedy YouTube chat room. I found the live speech. They said, "Oh, go to C-SPAN." I started playing it there. It kept buffering. It didn't start out from the very start. So I was able to find the live stream starting from the very start, and then I played Kennedy's speech, and 3 times it cut out because C-SPAN hadn't uploaded the whole thing yet. So it was kind of a cluster. But thank you, everyone, for everyone who has made it this far here. And what I think I'm gonna do now is probably just restart the whole thing, play the whole thing. It's about an hour and 40 minutes. So I think I'm just going to upload it as its own video. Hey, Joe, I really appreciate you joining me. Thank you, my brother. And please stay in touch. Like I said, if you ever want to come on here for this podcast, Kennedy and Trump podcast, this is all part of a book that I'm working on that will probably be put out in 2025. But I'd love to hear your story. I'd love to hear your thoughts, your thoughts on your mom and your parents who lived through that. If you ever do want to come on here live, or if you just want to do a written statement or something like that, I'm always here, always doing something here. So God bless you. God bless everyone here. All these silent lookers and looky-loos, but no, God bless you all. I'll definitely be back because in the next show, I do want to talk about Kennedy, who is suing Meta, which is pretty awesome. Kennedy is actually going to sue Meta. He's suing Meta, and I think that's a pretty good topic there for what Meta is doing, what he has done to a lot of us who have posted on Facebook. One of the reasons why I left Facebook, it's just it just was too much. The censorship and all that was just way too much, and I thought YouTube was bad. All right, God bless you all. Until next time, remember, Jesus Christ loves you, and yes, like Joe says, God bless America.